Welcome back, everybody, and a happy Memorial Day to you. Hopefully you were able to get out and about a little bit this weekend and see what's around. And of course, as you're getting out and about nowadays in the context of this COVID pandemic, the big question is to wear, right, or not to wear one of these. We have, of course, the cloth version of a mask and the N95 respirator. You've probably seen on social media all kinds of claims that these things really don't work. They're not 100% effective. Well, let's focus on that for a minute. Really, what does the healthcare sector think about these masks and using them for preventing COVID-19 infection? Let's go to somebody who ought to know. He's Dr. Georges Benjamin, the head of the American Public Health Association, who joins us tonight from Washington, D.C. What about these masks? People are looking at them saying, well, they're not 100%. They're not 100%. Why should I even wear them? What's the point? What say you about these masks?
So we ought to talk, when we talk about masks, we ought to talk about two different types of protections. So the first one, of course, is recognizing that you get the virus from another person. That person may contaminate a doorknob or a surface where you can pick it up, but fundamentally you get the virus person to person. In most cases, when you speak or you talk or you cough, particles are coming out of your mouth, out of your lungs, which are if you're infected, contain the virus. And those particles are a whole range of sizes, from fairly large particles to stuff that's so small it kind of floats in the air. And when you put on a mask, you literally block those particles from going out into the air. It's simply a barrier. So if you're infected, you dramatically reduce the number of particles that anyone who's in your proximity will be exposed to. And since the parameters that result in you getting infected are A, you getting exposed to the virus, and B, how much of the virus you get exposed to, that the 6-foot distance dramatically reduces the amount of virus that you're going to get. So absolutely, the mask is protective. Now, like anything else, all matter is porous. They all have pores in them. They all have holes. So this is all about the size of the virus and the size of the holes in the material that you're using. N95 masks, the surgical masks, they've all been designed to literally block, substantially reduce that virus from getting out into the atmosphere around you. Now, it is true that you can expel virus and air around that mask. The N95 mask fits very tightly on your face if it fit properly, so that doesn't happen. But some of the loose masks, even the cloth masks, if they're not snug around your face, yes, it can come out around you. And if the particles are real small, yeah, they can kind of suspend in the air and, before they fall to the ground. But again, it's about dramatically reducing the risk. So the answer is, if you're infected and you wear a mask, you will dramatically reduce the amount of risk of anybody around you.
So, doctor, it's not the case that when you sneeze or cough into the mask, the virus isn't saying, oh, I see a hole there and I'm going to find my way through and get out into the air. That's not how it works, right?
The virus does have to go through a maze to get out and has to be successful in doing so. And the mask is designed to try to reduce that risk. There are lots of things in life that are 100%. This is not one of them. But the reason it's called the N95 mask is that it reduces 95% of the particles and things from getting out, which again is all about risk reduction. And people ought to think about that, in terms of that. Obviously, the best way to not be exposed is to not go out, right, and not be around anybody with the virus. But that's not practical. So that's the next best thing.
Doctor, let's change gears here for a second and talk about asymptomatic infections. I think we've all seen reports whereby people have tested positive for COVID, but appear to show no symptoms. So, doctor, what should we make of these asymptomatic infections?
If you take 100 people, 80 of them will have mild symptoms, and around 20% of them will have more severe symptoms. About 25% of the people that have the disease can be asymptomatic. Now, asymptomatic is an interesting term because if you actually sit down with some of those folks, you find they had very, very mild symptoms. Because remember, initially the symptomatology that the CDC was acknowledging was fever, cough, shortness of breath. And then they added this syndrome of loss of taste and smell. They then added some gastrointestinal symptoms. And so as we've learned more, the symptomatology that we have accepted as part of the symptom complex has grown and changed. So we now know there's a range of symptoms. We also know that there are other complications of the virus in people that had no symptoms, at least in talking with them, probably had no symptoms at all. So that 100 or so kids who have that strange immunologic disease, many of them were symptom free. But later, as their body developed an immune response, it overcompensated and began to attack their own bodies, which is why they had this funny immune disease. But they didn't have a lot of symptoms early.
This is such important information, Doctor. Let's stick around for one more segment. Folks, don't go anywhere. We've got more with Dr. Georges Benjamin coming up right after this.